here. Welcome to this June gathering of our Cloudy Nights electronically assisted astronomy group, EAA group. And remember that this group had its birth in the Messier Marathon that we did together as a team. And after that worked so well, people said, hey, we should try to do this on a more regular basis rather than once a year at Messier Marathon. So that's how this group came about. And if you're watching tonight, maybe the YouTube version of this, or if you're watching live and you just haven't, spoken up yet, either way, welcome. We're glad you're here. My name's Doug, and I'm just one of the team, but we're certainly going to try to do a pass through each of the folks who are on, and you kind of have a choice to demonstrate something. Maybe you're noticing maybe our screen here is currently being shown by Jeff, and he is, let's see, Jeff, I'm trying to remember, are you in?
I'm in Montana. I'm in Billings, Montana.
That's right, Billings, Montana. And he said he had a breezy night with average seeing, but it's a lot better than many of us. So, we'll have a chance.
Completely clear.
Oh, good. We'll have a chance for each person to either demonstrate or ask questions. And in terms of a rule of thumb about our amount of time, I don't know what to say. If we have everybody come on board that was registered, we probably should think in terms of 5 minutes. But that doesn't mean that if you have a telescope pointed toward the heavens, that you have to stop after 5 minutes. Go ahead and work on targets and use the chat queue to tell us what you're viewing and any pertinent information like number of subframes. And that way we can always go and look at your frame while we're listening to somebody else talk, you see. Not all of us will have telescopes operating. It will be very helpful if you'll keep your microphone muted. And because we're using a Zoom platform, if you leave your microphone open and a dog barks or something, you've all been through that. I think all of us know that by now. So go ahead and self-mute when you're not talking, if you would. Let's go ahead and get started then. And I think we should start with you, Jeff, since you're up and running. This is Jeff Horn. He goes by Horn JS on Cloudy Nights. As I said, he's in Billings, Montana. Kind of walk us through what you're doing there, Jeff, and let's get started. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I'm other folks on here tend to use the SharpCap program. I've veered toward ASI Air Pro. I've been doing this since about maybe December or January, and like the ease of use of the program. I've already polar aligned, which took about 3 minutes, 3:20, and now I'm just scrolling through the ASIR menu, and I can go up here and click on any of these things that are readily available. And I'm just in Messier objects, and I still don't have a completely dark sky, but I'm going to go to the darkest part, and I think we'll go to I don't know, we'll just go see if we can slew to the Ring Nebula and find something quick.
Jeff, that's what I was hoping. That's what I was hoping you were going to do. It's a beautiful target, and it is in your eligibility list there. So
just for equipment purposes, I'm running a Celestron 8 Edge on a Skywatcher EQ6R Pro. It's a 294 MC Pro camera. I do have some guiding equipment, but we're not going to use that tonight. We're going to do 30-second subs. Right now, the program's just figuring out where it is. Plate solving. And hopefully folks will get an idea just how quick this is. And so we're confirmed. It'll give us a quick preview of where we are. I don't think I'm focused yet because we're still getting dark here, but and there it is. That's a 2-second preview of our target. So I'll go over here to Live Stack and then the sub menu, and I can sort of pick my exposure rate. And I've already got this set from last night when I was in Yellowstone, completely dark, working on some of this stuff. So we'll go ahead and Live Stack some of that and see what we get.
While that's live stacking, Jeff, tell us what that was like in Yellowstone. I bet that was a dark sky.
So it was terrible because I packed up all my stuff, trucked it down to Teton in Yellowstone, and I had 6 days of clouds and bad weather. And then my last night there, I had just a tremendous night for about 2 hours.
Oh,
and it was, as much Milky Way as you want to see. You can almost see stuff with binoculars, which was amazing. All
awesome.
right, so we're done with our first 30 seconds. And again, this isn't focused or anything. This is sort of a quick.
Jeff, this is new to me. This is Mike here in Spain.
Hey.
Hi, how's it going? Good morning.
Very well. How are you?
It's sunrise here. The cocks are crowing, literally. Question, I'm not familiar with this SAR Pro program. Could you give us a quick compare and contrast with SharpCap?
No, I can't compare it to SharpCap. I've downloaded it, but I haven't had a chance to use it. What I'll go through is just some of the settings on top. You've got some camera settings that you can look at. You set your focal length. I've got a cooler on mine, and I just have gain at Unity. You can set a guiding setup if you like. We're not going to do that tonight. There's an option for the electronic filter wheel. On the right side of the left side of the program, there's the histogram, which you can make go away. You can bring up a guiding submenu, and you can have tools which you can actually annotate, and it'll sort of circle where it thinks it is.
Okay. I thought in the beginning you said you preferred it to SharpCap. I just wondered why.
No, this is ASIR Pro. And here comes our first picture.
Okay.
Nice.
And so we've got it on sort of an auto histogram. And the comparison to SharpCap that I've seen you guys use is you guys can adjust individual colors. I really cannot, but I can adjust the black slider and the brightness slider to my heart's content, but the individual colors I cannot.
Okay.
That did help.
And I've got some artifacts. I must have moved my imaging train during transport.
Oh.
So I've got some work to do tonight, it looks like.
It's beautiful. We're just starting
But you
to see
can zoom
the outer
in.
red. Yeah, we're starting to see the outer red shell there around M27.
Yeah, I think my imaging train must have moved quite a bit because I've got some really bad artifacts.
It's beautiful.
Question: What other controls do you have on this software for
Yeah,
stacking?
so if you we'll go into the live stack sub menu, so you can change your binning, you can change the exposure. I'll scroll through that menu. Well, we can't do that while we're live stacking, but you can add in your flats, your darks, and for my bias, I have dark flats because the bias don't work very well on the 294. And then if you like to do some processing, you can save the frames while you're stacking. You can also set a limit on how much you want to stack. And then there's options for all the flats and darks and biases there. So now our histogram's getting a little bit overdone. So this isn't terrible. I mean, you can see the central star. It's good.
That's
for
right.
EAA, but again,
we're starting to see the central star now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but my imaging train, like I said, I don't know what these artifacts are on the bottom. Something has moved. And then, for the guiding submenu, I have a 290 ASI on an off-axis guider, and so if you hit the loop button, you can get an image of what the guiding star should look like. Now, ASIR has just introduced the multi-star guiding. It's got some problems, but you can go in and play with your gain on your guiding camera, your calibration steps, all that. So we'll just see what it does. It's probably going to pick something. There we go. And then it'll give you a graph, and you can change the aggression. You can change the steps. Again, my seeing's not very good tonight, so the off-axis guider is not going to do exceptionally well. And you can see it's losing the star as it moves around.
Jeff, I would say that from my perspective, ASIR is designed to be a more comprehensive solution, and it's trying to make things more intuitive, isn't it?
It's really it's really user-friendly.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had too much in the way of issues. I've had some plate solving problems where it'll all of a sudden change the focal length of my scope and it won't be able to plate solve. But now that I know that that pops up randomly, I can fix it pretty easy. And we just got photobombed.
Well, Jeff,
yeah,
why don't you keep working there?
I'll keep playing and we can move
yeah,
around.
That's right. Keep playing and keep this on your screen. If you can go ahead and stop sharing. Let's go over to Mike Jerry. I think, Mike, do you have, welcome, by the way, Mike, and you're speaking from Death Valley. Do you have an image going yet, or are you still aligning?
I just, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just got set up on a line and I just started stacking on the Leo Trio.
Can you share your screen?
Yes. Let me
go ahead, Mike, and introduce your equipment and all while you're sharing your screen, and welcome.
Thank you. So, well, let me just go to my desktop and show you what my setup is. You guys probably saw this last time, but for those who weren't here, let me bring that up. And so this is my setup in my backyard. It's a 6-inch f4 imaging Newtonian on a Celestron Altaz Evolution mount that's on a Celestron HD wedge that's on top of my spare no expense cinder block pier that's in my backyard. And obviously the camera goes in the focuser up here. And then I'm sitting back here at this table on this computer doing all this now. So this is what I'm using as a simple imaging Newtonian, and tonight I'm using ZWO ASI 533 color camera in this. So I just started on the Leo Trio here, and right now,
beautiful.
It's really washed. SharpCap is doing crazy things right now. I'm not really sure why it looks like this. It looks like my histogram is just completely wackadoodle, and
mine does that, Mike, when I have fooled with the camera control small histogram, and the solution that I have to do when it does that to me is do a reset on that small histogram on the side. But it looks like you're pulling it back into submission.
Yeah, it just went a little crazy, a little cuckoo, and I still need to do a color balance. So I come down here and do the auto color balance, which brings everything back into line. All the little colors line up in the histogram.
Beautiful.
And I can bring this back. And now I got to brighten this up a bit, because my experience is that what I see here needs to be a lot brighter than what I like to make it come out right on the live stream. So there is the Leo Trio, the Hamburger Galaxy on top, and 65 and 66 on the bottom. I believe it's 65 and 66. Yes, 66 and 65 respectively. But there is the Leo Trio, and of course a satellite photo bombed across the top. So this right now, I am at 4 minutes. I'm doing 60-second exposures, and there's 4 of them stacked so far.
Wow. And there's no guiding going on.
No, I don't do guiding. No, this is just straight 60-second exposures on the wedge, which the wedge and the cinder block pier stay outside permanently polar aligned. And so the only thing I need to do when I set up is put the Evolution on it, put the scope on the mount, and just do a regular star sense alignment, and I'm good to go with full polar alignment. And I check my polar alignment once every 2 or 3 months. I just checked it a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty close, but I tweaked it back on a little. And anyway, yeah, so that's what I'm currently on right now. I figured a little bit of the last gasp of Galaxy season.
Fantastic. Now you probably do a broadcast at least once every couple of weeks?
Yeah, during the 2 weeks of Dark of the Moon, I try and do as many as I can get weather dependent. So usually I average 3 to 4 a month, typically. This month, because we had so much wind over the last week or so, I was only able to get one in. I got one in very early, right after the full moon. And so it was really early in the dark of the moon phase. And now I've just got one in, Thursday night was my last one. So,
Nice.
You're
getting a lot of detail down there on, I think that's 66, isn't it, on the left? There's a lot of that, that cotton candy look. I
Yep.
think there's a name for that, but boy, it's beautiful.
And you can see I'm just getting slight
Just
ovaling
slight.
on the stars
Just
with the
slight,
60-second exposures.
yeah, mhm. But wow, it's just gorgeous. And you can see nice dust lanes on 65 there too.
Yep.
Well done,
Turn
Mike.
this. Oh, wow.
You can just see that you're very comfortable with this. It's like you're like putting on an old pair of jeans. Look at that nice hamburger in between there.
Yep. And of course, these look better with the mono camera, which does better on Galaxy type objects, but they still look nice, and it's nice seeing them in color every once in a while too.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
but yeah,
Mike,
there
I
they
have a
are.
question.
Go
Go ahead.
for it.
Do you use a coma corrector?
Yes, I have a Batter MPC3 in there.
That's the same one I have. I have to get mine focused in. I got the focus link set, but I haven't had a chance. The weather's been too bad. I'm using an 385 camera right now.
Okay.
Jim?
In what kind of scope?
Astrotech 6-inch Newtonian.
So a 6-inch newt. So basically similar to what I'm using.
Yes.
Okay. I'm really surprised with a 1/2-inch sensor. Are you getting significant coma at the corners of a 385?
I was getting a little bit, but I decided to put it on, and my other friend, who's very experienced, 30 years, he said, try it out, see what happens. So
Okay.
I just haven't had any clear weather.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For me out here, it's always wind, not clouds, but it's still the same thing. When I used, before I got the 533 and the 183, I was running 178s color and mono. And with the 1/2-inch sensor, I did not really find that I had enough coma that it was worth putting all the extra glass in my imaging train, my optical train. So I try and keep it as simple as possible. So yeah, give it a try and see what you get. But anytime you can eliminate any layers of glass from your optical train, you're better off. So see what it does for you.
Okay. Did you, I have my focal length at 56.5 because it's 57.5 plus or minus 1. So I'm close. I just have to get it focused in.
Yeah, I think, gosh, I use the native spacers that come with the ZWO cameras, which I think is a 21 and a 16. And I don't think I have any other spacers in there. So I think it's at the native 55, and it seems to work for me. I didn't have to mess with it much. But yeah, play around and see what works for you.
Mike, if you could keep your scope working there and just go ahead and show this as your screen and keep your video active so we can keep looking at what you're doing, and tell us in the chat panel once in a while when you've gone to a new target, if you don't mind.
How do I keep that as my screen instead of showing me?
I see what you're saying. Maybe, I don't know what your broadcast setup is like. Maybe in Zoom in the lower left, when you hover over video and you click on the little drop down, it'll let you choose the camera. I don't know. And right now the camera is showing your laptop camera, but maybe if your laptop is aware of the SharpCap camera that you're using, your primary AstroCam, it'll let you pick that camera. Maybe, I don't know.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
The only thing it lets me select is the laptop camera. So
All right.
You know, this is something we used to have an issue with when we broadcast on NSN, and there's software called CamTwist that we used to use that shows up as a camera, but lets you put your desktop on there.
There you go. We'll have to
Anyway.
check that out for next time. Cam
Doug,
Twist.
I'm going to step away for a bit and redo some flats and darks, see if I can
Okay.
get my imaging train set up.
Okay, sounds good, Jeff.
All right.
Well, I tell you what, we'll come back to you, Mike. If
Okay.
you want to go ahead and stop sharing, let's go on to the next guy. Is there anyone else who has a scope working? What about you, Evil? Do you have a scope going? Whoops, I think you're on mute, Evil. Famous last words. You might have to unmute there, Evil. I don't think I can. You know what I could do? I can click a button that says ask.
It's Alt A. It's Alt A on the computer on a PC. If
That's
you're on a
true.
PC, you can hit
There you
Alt
go.
A, and that
There you
toggles
go,
your.
Ewald. You're with us now. Do you have a scope working, Ewald?
Yes, but not at the
Okay.
moment because we are here in Munich. It's now 6:30 a.m. So it's no night. No, it's.
Did you
not
stay up
pitch
all
black,
night?
It's
Did you stay up all
already-
night waiting? Did you stay up all night waiting for this, Ewald?
Beg your pardon?
Did you just get up right now in the morning, or have you been up
Yes,
through the
of
night?
course.
Oh, good. Okay.
I wanted to join the meeting, and I've prepared something a little bit, but what was going for me in the last days wrong. Perhaps I can introduce my
Please.
my setup. We started. My wife and me are very excited about astronomy, and we started with a EAA setup in the past 8 weeks or so on.
Good.
Last year, we started with a huge 10-inch, huge is not typically huge, but it's a 10-inch Newtonian on a Dobson setup. And we always wanted to see some nebulas and some deep sky object. So we went to EAA during the beginning of the year.
Mhm.
And we have set up a Celestron mount, azimuthal mount with a Skywatcher 130 PDS. It's a 5-inch. And I work with a Barlow lens, which has an enforcement of 1.5 and included a coma corrector. And it is doing quite well, and it works very okay. We are very satisfied with it. Nevertheless, we are going to try everything out, and it's every night it's very exciting to work with the setup. But we had in the past 8 weeks, we had very, very bad weather here in Munich. We had only, I think, 4 or 5 clear nights in the past 6 weeks or so on. And so it was really hard to come closer to the setup. And I tried the last time to work with SharpCap and worked very well, but I missed to save the images at the end. So after one night was clear night, I didn't have anything stored. But I remembered that it is able to do a sort of redo with SharpCap, because you can select inside SharpCap a folder where you find the frames which you have stored. But the problem is not a problem, but I wasn't aware before. I have it's a color camera. It's a AC 294 color camera. But when you have color cameras, all your files which are stored by SharpCap are mono. And you have to, at first you have to do some debaying, which means that a separate software has to calculate each file and convert it from the black and white format to a color format. I discovered this yesterday, and I don't know how to show it to you now, to show my screen. I think here's a button to share the screen.
At the bottom. You
Yeah.
can hover over the bottom.
So as you've seen, so do you see now no?
Yes, we see your desktop.
You see my desktop. Okay, great. And I used a software which is called PIPP. You see here. And in this software, it's very easy to select the source files. I selected here. I had a stack which about 480 files. and you select where to put it and so on. It's quite normal. I think everybody who works with computers can manage it, and then you just start to do processing, and it's working. And just before the meeting, I did the last 30 files you see here. And then you can go back to SharpCap, tell SharpCap here in the cameras, there's a
That's beautiful.
comes up the folder monitor camera, and then you can redo the whole stuff. What I have done here now, and it's already now finished. It has 412 frames stacked, and we are seeing here our galaxy, and I'm very happy with this.
Yes.
That I found it, because the really idea what I was going to do was, because some days before I did M106, and there were many satellites in it, and I thought, oh, there must be an idea I can throw away all those files where the satellites are in, and then I discovered the whole stuff with the black and white and so on, and just some hours ago I found the solution how to do it. Nevertheless, by reading in internet and so on, I found also something interesting I didn't know before. Perhaps everybody knows here in this team, but I was not knowing it. It was in the stacking. You can use here a stacking algorithm with SharpCap. And I had it as standard, as default, and never thought about it. And I read in internet that if you are doing Sigma clipping, then SharpCap will automatically void such frames which are with satellites and everything, which is a little bit straining. So I have to redo my M106, and then I hope I get it without trails of the satellite. I can show you now my M106, what I did, and hopefully I can redo it, not during our meeting here, but in the next days. So I can show you perhaps the next time it was possible or not. In general, as I mentioned before, it's a F5 setup, so it's well doing for F5. Perhaps the problem is here also the Barlow gets some when using the Barlow, it's not F5, it's a F7.5. So we are losing some light with the Barlow, but with the focal length is now with the Barlow not 650, it's about 900 something. So it's quite okay, I think, for M106.
Wow, it's beautiful. You know what I couldn't help but notice, Steve, is how black your sky is. That's so nice.
Yeah, I did some. I always try to put it as dark as possible with some setup in SharpCap, which is sometimes a little bit hard to do, but normally it works.
Yes, well done. And what size scope did you say you had? 10-inch?
It's a 650 millimeter focal length, and the opening is 130 millimeters.
130. So that's probably what?
5-inch.
5-inch, yes. It's a Skywatcher 130 PDS.
Oh, it's beautiful scope. In M51, you had a really great image on M51 too. We were seeing all that dust being flung out. It was just well done, Evil. We have to run on to the next person, but boy, you're doing a great job, and hats off to you and your wife for what you've accomplished in a short amount of time. Well done.
Yeah, thank you very much. Greetings from Munich to all of the team.
Thank you, Evil, and I hope you'll stay on board. I guess we should say good morning to you there. I guess we should say.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
All right. Do we have Aaron Turner here with us? Are you with us, Aaron? Aaron Turner, I thought I saw you logged on. Last chance for you, Aaron.
He just said he's just watching.
Oh, okay. Aaron, do you want to introduce any of your I know you go by Sin, SYN Scene Fanatic on Cloudy Nights. Do you want to introduce anything that you're working on, Aaron?
Hey guys, yeah. It's Sin Fanatic.
Uh-huh.
It's actually a networking thing. for all you
Okay.
networking geeks. So no, yeah, I'm just kind of like checking things out and trying to understand this better and maybe dip my toes in this a little more.
Super.
So I'm just learning. So
Okay.
thank you to all of you who are presenting and sharing everything that you're doing.
We're glad to have you on, and that's very kind of you to kind of give your time to the others. But if you have other questions, just ask in the chat panel and somebody will help us see if I miss it.
All right, will do. Thank you.
Super. And let's see, you're from California. Which city are you, Aaron?
I'm in San Jose,
San
which
Jose.
is, if you know, the Bay Area is horrible for this sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's crowded and very lit.
Yes,
All
Portal
right.
8.
What about Brian? You go by BTHREL, Threll, but it's Brian Threlkeld. Are you with us today, Brian?
Yeah, but I don't have anything set up. I'm just viewing only.
Okay. Well, we're glad to have you aboard. Do you have want to say anything about your equipment, or you're in Linden, right? Is that Washington?
I'm in Middle Tennessee, where it's perpetually cloudy lately.
Okay. Linden, Tennessee. Well, Brian, it's great to have you aboard. We're so glad. Don't hesitate to jump in. How about Say? It's spelled C-E-Y. I remember you last time, Say Alvarez. You go by Say 42, and I think you're in Seattle. Are you on with us? I think you were going to try to have a scope set up, in fact, Say.
He just said in chat he has no mic. He's just watching.
Okay. Well, Say, if you have a scope set up, you could go ahead and show us your screen if you wanted. You wouldn't have to have a mic. No? Cloudy and not dark. Okay. Well, Say, we're glad you're here. And I remember you were with us last time as well. We appreciate it. Curtis, do you have a scope set up, brother? Go ahead. You're in Irvine, California.
Not
Curtis,
tonight, unfortunately.
Okay.
And actually, that's one of the things I was going to talk about is I'm looking to figure out where I can put a remote scope.
Okay.
And that's something that I think some of us that live in cities or maybe have a place where they're living where there's not an easy backyard, that might be a better option.
Gotcha. Now you use the moniker relativist on cloudy nights. So we'll watch for your if anyone has a favorite remote scope solution, go ahead and put it in the chat. I have just been watching some videos about some people who had rented time down in Chile at an observatory there, and it wasn't outrageously expensive. And they were bragging about the fact that it was clear and the altitude was high, and they were just bragging about how well it worked out. If you have a solution like that, don't hesitate to put that in the chat panel and we'll catch up with you. So
Doug,
yes.
The thing I'm finding the issue being is most of those rental scopes are, I guess I would just put it as higher F ratio, where it's set up for us astrophotographers versus an EAA, where we're kind of more wanting a faster scope and kind of a more immediate. So that's kind of the issue. So what I found also is that there's places where you can rent a pier, and in those locations, you can go in with other people and maybe get a space where it's a dark sky, and they have that. So I think that might be something where if there's a group of EAAers that want to grab a space like that, that's probably the best idea.
It's a great idea. Well, surely somebody has a solution for that already. So if you are cruising on the web and you come across something like that, don't hesitate to let us know, and Curtis will be glad for it. Are we looking at your screen to get here, Mike? Is this you? Might be Mike. Mike Jerry, but okay, Curtis, thanks a lot. And also you mentioned that you would be willing to say something about broadcasting sites. Do you want to say a word about Discord?
Yeah, there's nightskiesnetwork.com.
Yes.
You guys probably know about that. Actually, I think Mark is on there right now. Mark Bahu Broadcasting. And right now I've talked to Joe, the owner, and we're working on trying to get that upgraded. But yeah, one of the things I was trying to do is use something called Restream that would allow me to broadcast to multiple sites like YouTube and Facebook and whatever else is out there. So I like it because Restream has something that's a web-based broadcaster. I don't need OBS, so I'm trying to get away from having to use something like OBS, just to lessen the load. So
early on, Curtis, I tried a peer to OBS called Split Cam that does that multiple broadcasts. Have you ever tried that, Split Cam?
No, I haven't tried that one.
It streams to three different services. I know for sure: Facebook Live, YouTube, and a third. It'll stream to 3 at once like that. But I did find that it did bog down the internet quite a bit because it is sending out a separate source to each of those 3. And maybe this Restream is somehow doing it differently, but that was bogging down the internet quite a bit. Okay.
That's right. You stream to them and they split it up on their end.
I see. That's much better solution. Well done. All right, Curtis, don't hesitate to jump back in if you think of something else you want to share. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for that post on my thread. When you do announcements, I'm really happy it's getting used.
Well,
so thank you guys for doing that.
We're glad for your thread. There's Philip saying that he drives to 29 Palms. Sky's the limit for a dark site. 29.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I live in Southern California, so I can drive out there. My issue is I don't have time for, with young kids, I don't have time for taking, I used to be able to do that. And I used to just plop my dog down and just start observing.
Yeah.
So, talk about immediate gratification. So
yeah.
There's nothing better than that. But barring that, I think I am talking to the OCA and trying to figure out if I could put something out in Anza. But there's issues with leaving equipment out there somewhat. So
got it.
Yeah, some of these sites, I think, it might be a good idea to put something out there, and they have roll-off observatories.
Yep.
And you can remotely control the equipment. So
okay, let's all be on the lookout and see if we can find some observatory somewhere that has put a scope on remote that is designed for EAA. Somebody like one of those clubs down in Texas that are real active with 3 observatories on the same mountain or whatever. That would be a great solution. So hey, I just want to check and make sure David's not with us. David Parks hoped to be with us from Battle Creek. Are you here, David? If you are, just jump back in. And I don't think Frank is with us, but Frank was going to try to come in to play from Schenectady. Did you make it on, Frank?
I think Frank had a fishing tournament.
Oh, okay.
If I remember that right.
He must have registered.
He's like a pro bass fisherman or something.
Yes, he is. He must have registered just so he'd get the link for the recording, I bet, because he did go ahead and register. What about George Starr? Did you make it on from Pittsburgh?
Doug, yes, this is my screen that's on here. For some reason, Zoom wouldn't let me unmute, so I couldn't answer your question. Yes, this is M95 and M96, and I stole the screen. Yes.
Beautiful. No problem. We're glad to have that because if people are going to be non-video participants, we might as well be looking at your sharp cap. So that's good. Well done. What about George Starr? I didn't see you on, George, but you're from, I think you log on from Pittsburgh. You're not here, are you, by chance? You go by Geo Star and Cloudy Nights. Okay, how about Guy? You had registered Guy Gagnon, and I think you log on from Canada. Are you with this guy? Is that guy from Canada? No? I don't think Jeff could make it, Jeff Carpenter. That takes us down to John Kotko. John, you go by Kowtko, Kotko, and you're in Redwood City, California. Are you with us? Okay. I think I saw Jonathan Betts. And I know that everybody's going to see that name and they're all going to think Jonathan Betts, but I don't think that's what the name means. I think it's his actual name, JJ Betts in Cloudy Nights.
Yes, that's me.
Okay. Jonathan, do you go by Jonathan usually or John?
I go by Jonathan.
Jonathan, good. It looked like that you were going to share something about the setup steps that you take, combining your ASI Air Pro setup with Altaz, with an Altaz mount. Do you want to say something about that?
Sorry, I was just trying to get my technology working here.
do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, let me try sharing. So I've got my ASI Air up, and I've not done this before. So I'm going to try sharing. I've got my iPad and I'm logged in also on my laptop.
Okay.
I'm going to try sharing my screen from my iPad and see how it goes. Okay.
Multi-tech.
So we'll see if that works.
We see your iPad.
Okay, perfect. So then
there's your ASI Air. Is this live? Is this live right now,
This is live. Yeah, this is live right now. This is
That's
post
awesome.
Galaxy. Just kind of messing around with the slider a little bit. You know, we got some pretty bad wildfires just a little bit to the east of us here. So sky's got a little bit of smoke and, and stuff in it. I'm probably about Bortle 7 here where I live. I've just got the scope set up in my backyard.
Is that 81 and 82?
Yep, it's 81 and 82. This is with the 6SE. Next star, just the standard Aldaz 6SE mount that you know,
nice
right out of the box. This is with a Hyperstar though, so I did invest in a Hyperstar. I've got a 183 MC Pro cooled camera. I've got the cooling turned on. The cooler's running at 100%, and I'm at about 10 degrees Celsius negative right now, and it's probably over 100 degrees still out there right now. So here in Phoenix, we're hitting the high today was over 110. We're supposed to be like 120 and 119 later this week. So this is live stacking. I'm about 15-second stacks. This is about 25 stacks at this point. I didn't get a chance to set up early enough to take some sky flats. So I did get some vignetting with this setup. If I kind of, you know, back off a little bit, start to, you kind of see, you know, see that there pretty bad. So, you know, to get the black sky, I kind of have to kill the signal quite a bit though, but still pretty amazing what I'm getting with just a little 6 SE, you know.
This is beautiful. It's great detail.
What's the maximum exposure you can make with that setup?
I'm finding I sometimes can get it up to 20-ish seconds. I get too much higher than that. I'm finding I'm getting the stars become lines, especially up in the corners. I'm definitely, I have noticed too, I have to let my scope settle a little bit at times. If I move to another, you know, target, it'll, you know, I've posted some earlier posts on Cloudy Nights about, you know, lines and things like that. And what I've kind of found is I just have to be a little patient and let it settle. Sometimes the first few shots I'm taking, you know, it'll look pretty awful. And I just kind of have to clear the stack and let it start over. And then I'm usually good to go. So, you know, maybe someday I invest in a little bit better mount, but, you know, for, you know, the stock kind of 6SE mount, I think it's pretty slick that you can, I mean, I'm sitting here in Bortle 7 looking at, you know, 2 galaxies, you know, you're not doing that with visual.
And you said Hyperstar, so you're close to F2, right?
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Exactly.
Nice. Could we ask a question, Jonathan?
Sure.
I guess this is ASI Air Night. You're able to control your blacks, but did I understand maybe from Jeff that you don't have a control for the mids?
You got a white and a black. So you got a slider down here for your whites, which, you know, I usually, frankly, just kind of leave that wherever the auto, there's an auto setting, right? So I can go to auto. I typically just leave the white slider alone, and then I typically move the black over to, if I'm using flats, I can usually get, you know, right in the middle roughly, or even a little bit to the left and still have pretty good signal. If I go all the way to the right, usually that gets me a nice, you know, fairly nice black screen, but, you know, I definitely can't control specific colors.
Okay.
It does auto balance, auto color balancing is my understanding.
Got it.
Which
Boy,
you
that
mentioned earlier, kind of making it intuitive for people, right? It's not a whole lot of
Yes.
options you have to mess with.
Yes. That 183 camera is doing you great. I tell you what, it's just amazing the resolution you're getting with those frames. So well done, Jonathan.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, it's pretty. It's been exciting. So can't wait till I got to get out and do Andromeda. That means I got to get up early though. So.
Cool. Well, and you're Bortle what? Would you be Bortle 6?
Probably,
there,
you know, it says 6 according to the sky charts, but
Uh-huh.
you know, I'm right on the kind of the southeast edge of the Phoenix metro area. So I've also read with 6, you're supposed to be able to kind of see the Milky Way barely, and you can't see the Milky Way. So
No.
I gotta believe it's probably closer to 7, if not even a little
Okay.
higher. I mean, the community I live in is they use some LED lights, but they've tried to kind of keep it more dark sky. Like they don't actually purposely limited the amount of street lights in our community to try to make it a little, better for the dark skies. But we'll see. I don't have a whole lot of hope. 5 years from now, it's going to be 407, probably 8, if I had to guess. The way the city's getting built.
Wow. Jonathan, that's a great image, and appreciate you having a scope live for us. So we have 3 scopes going on here with yours, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, if there's anything else anybody wants to look at, let me know on the chat.
Sounds good.
I'll pull it up.
Sounds good. What about Ken? We know we've heard some questions from you there in Midland. You were hoping to ask also something about back focus. Do you want to ask anything about that, or?
Since I asked that question, or since I signed up, I think I got it figured out.
Oh,
I
good.
just need to get the focus now, get out under the stars and get it focused.
Got it.
Then I'll be good to go. Hopefully next time we have a meeting, I'll be able to live share.
Great. That would be awesome. Ken, and you're up in Midland, Michigan.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, we're in Bortle 5,
Bortle
but
5.
I have a light dome, which is the Dow Chemical plant, the actual plant itself that comes up above the trees just a little bit. But I still don't get too bad a picture.
Got it. And you use Stargazer Man as your moniker on cloudy nights.
Correct.
Got it. I know, Kim, you've said that you are down there in Adelaide. I think you said you were just going to be watching. You have clear skies, but they're all bright blue. Did you tell us?
They're very bright. Yeah, they're very bright, Doug.
Bright. Kim, we see your image now. Can you tell us a little bit about your equipment that you use?
Yeah, I will. I'm actually going to put it up as a PowerPoint, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. You want to go ahead and share the screen?
Oh, I can't do up.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not.
There you go. Now you can.
Got it. Thank you.
Sorry, I had to stop sharing.
Yeah, that's no problem.
All right, so I'll just jump to that slide there. Can you see that okay?
Yes, nice.
All right, so that's one of my scopes. Actually, if I go back one. Yeah, so the story, I guess, starts about a little over a year ago when I bought this mount, the Skywatcher AZEQ 6. And the idea was to use this for public outreach, where one of the scopes, and it was going to be the Schmidt-Cassegrain, would be used for visual work, and the other one would be to provide electronic imaging. So at public outreach events, we could actually show, people could look through, look at the object visually and also see electronically what was on, what was being shown as well, or at least others could. But COVID hit us around that time. So that plan went out the window, and we haven't had any visual public nights since, although we're hoping to resume them in August now. So in the meantime, I got involved I put more effort into this scope and actually equipping it for electronic imaging, and in particular EAA. And to some extent photography, I guess, but I was never interested in doing the heavy processing. I don't know too many people who are actually, but there are some, but it's not me. And my grand theory is that one day artificial intelligence will make that so automated, no one will do it, right? So this is my scope. It's a William Optics scope that I purchased many years ago on a trip to the US. And I've used it as a visual scope for many years. And what I wanted to do when I started getting into this was to use the equipment I had and see how far I can get with that. So I still use that scope. I bought I already had a focal reducer, actually 0.8 times. And I ended up buying a 533 camera. Wasn't that long ago, actually. And since then, I ended up with an ASI Air. Yes, I know it's ASI Air Night. And I'm a real fan of the technology and the simplicity around it. And I'll explain why a little bit later. But I've got an electronic focuser, got a great mount, very happy with the mount, although I think it does need to be torn down and re-greased. And there's a guide scope and a mini guide camera on there. And recently I bought one of these blue boxes from Pegasus just to manage my power requirements. And so I've only got one cable going up. And everything runs off an iPad and it just works really neat, and love the simplicity. So I'm part of the Astronomical Society of South Australia. I'm actually their president at the moment. We have about 600 members, and one of the big challenges we have is how do we do public outreach given our restrictions locally. So we come up with an idea that we'll use electronic imaging and we'll start doing a number of events, one of which was a pop-up event we tried a few weeks ago at this outdoor eatery, window outdoor eatery in the centre of Adelaide. So I took my scope along, and you can see I'm dependent upon power by that long cable heading off to the power point behind the bins. And I would have to class this as, if you've ever seen the movie Spinal Tap, well, this is a Bortle 11 site. It's totally over the top. I mean, I'm literally parked. I had no choice. I was parked under these very bright LED lights, and I basically worked from there. But from there, I was still able to produce images in near real time for people that were just wandering by. And you can see Omega Centauri there on the left, and that's usually quite an easy target. But I also imaged M83 from that very spot, just using an LX stream filter, which is a dual band H alpha and oxygen 3 filter. And in no time, you can actually start to see the little pink nebulae in the arms quite nicely coming out in that image. And people were stunned that they could actually see a galaxy. Now, most people had never seen a galaxy before, but they know it's a spiral thing, right? And they were impressed to see that, and also to see the color in it. So from an outreach perspective, this technology works really well. And EAA, I think, is something that for us, we're looking at ways to deploy it. And we ran a test at one of our observatories a few weeks ago, and you might notice it's very cloudy in the background there. But moments before this image was projected from the iPad and the projector on the bottom right there onto the side of our observatory, one of our observatory domes, I was running a real-time image of the Orion Nebula, and that was forming on the side of this dome. And it was actually quite an impressive sight to see it forming in real time. So we're looking at projection technologies to capture the images in real time and project them in real time. So I've come up with sort of this view of the world, and I'll just go through this. It won't take very long, but conventional astronomy outreach looks a bit like that. And sometimes it can be a pretty underwhelming experience for some people. I mean, once you see the moon and the bright planets and a few of the brighter deep sky objects, you're left wondering, well, what is that fuzzy thing I'm looking at, right? And usually the person talking, explaining what's going on may not know too much either. They might be too wrapped up in the technology rather than the actual object. So that's probably as good as it got for a lot of people. For some people, it just wasn't an option at all, right? I mean, we have this situation a lot with kids and other people who just are not able to actually attend our sites and even access a telescope. So the idea was we'll go from that to this, right? And that's actually an image I captured. I should point out, that's actually an image, it's slightly embellished, I might add. Well, I captured that image with my ASI Air about 6 hours after I received the device. And I had it in my front yard, about 15 meters from a street light. And I took the image while I was lying on the couch and eventually fell asleep inside and then woke up to see this image, right? So it tells you anyone can do this, right? And the ASI Air really is a great tool. But the idea is we'll now have group presentations and Q&A sessions, and they'll be curated, and that'll be much more engaging for a lot more people. So it's a vastly improved user experience that we're looking to convey here. And this is how it works. Basically, you've got some sort of automated imaging scope. You've got your, there's an ASI Air on it. You're running an iPad or an iPhone, and your Wi-Fi connected to a projector, which then beams this image up. And you have a presenter talking the group through what they're seeing. And all the benefits actually listed underneath that slide on the right there as to why this makes a lot of sense. So you can do this from light polluted areas as well, which works for our urban programs quite nicely. So we're looking at pop-up type telescope events where we just let people know on Facebook that where we're doing this, and they'll roll up. And so we just pick a window over a week, usually between first quarter and full moon. And if the weather looks good, and it was meant to be completely cloudy here today, and it's like, all I'm looking at is bright blue skies for some reason. So when the weather's good, we'll just send out a notice on Facebook, bang, we're on, and we'll identify where we're doing our event, and people just roll up. We also do rely upon foot traffic. We're also doing tours of the night sky in person, and we're going to do one of these, as I said, in August at our observatory at Stockport. And we also have done a number of live streams using this technology, and that's worked really well for us as well. So, but you can also do other add-on experiences, one of which is selfies with the moon, where you just project the moon. I've seen others do this. We haven't done it yet, and kids get quite excited by that, having their photo taken with the moon, or even walking on the moon and where you project it on the ground, let kids run around. Right? So these are some of the things we're looking to do using this technology, and we're pretty happy with what we've got. We had an online star party in February, which worked rather well. We had a number of telescopes around the city and the state, and we were crossing to them and showing images of the night sky. But it wasn't ad hoc. It was actually a curated program where we actually looked at the life and death of stars. So we started off with nebulae, star formation, looked at planetary nebulae as stars become unstable, showed supernova remnants, showed galaxies, and then even tried to show a quasar at the end there. And so it was a whole experience going deeper and deeper into the universe. And it was really we got a lot of positive feedback from that. So just wrapping up, we had another event, lunar eclipse event, a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now. And that was very successful. We had over 2,000 people watching us concurrently. And that blew out to over 40,000 had watched it at some point. So that proved very popular. These are some of the scopes we had scattered across Australia. You can see we're based in Adelaide, which is in South Australia, but we have members and other friends elsewhere. And we had all their rigs up and running. And as it turned out, we were clouded out in Adelaide, but our friends interstate in Victoria and also in Queensland up in Surfers Paradise, we're all set to go. So we just beamed the eclipse from there. So we've got a team now that sort of can do this across the country almost, which is great. I won't go through that. And these are just a couple of the images we've captured. This is M46 with a planetary nebula in the foreground. This is done with all of these are done with the ASI Air. NGC 253, again, very easy target. 5128, another very easy target. Now, all of these are taken from Bortle 8 skies, by the way, which is quite remarkable. I think that the fact you can do this in very heavily light polluted environments. This one was done from a darker sky, and this is Macarian's chain. I think these were a stack of 10 2-minute exposures using that same telescope, an 80mm scope. I was very happy with that. Another one of Amiga. This is another cluster, a globular cluster in the southern sky. And I was just cruising the night sky, and I thought I'd image this globular. And I noticed the nice golden color which I don't think I'd ever observed this globular before. But I also noticed just directly above it is this band of darkness. And you basically, it's like observing, but you're doing it electronically, right? Electronically assisted astronomy. And you discover things as you go that you don't actually realize are there. And that bit at the top there, that dark band, is actually part of a structure nicknamed the dark doodad. If you want to Google the dark doodad, I think it was named by an editor of Sky and Telescope, actually, when they stumbled upon it as well. But you can discover things as you go along, and I find that really fascinating. In fact, you can sit inside and do this from the comfort of your home. And again, this was in a Bortle 8. These are Bortle 8 skies. And this was taken, this is obviously the Crab Nebula, taken with an extreme filter. And it was a very, very hot night. It was over 100 degrees outside and windy, and eventually the image formed, but it was, yeah, the cooler wasn't able to help us much. Now this is a fascinating little object. Everyone's heard of this object, but I don't think anyone's seen it. And that tiny little orange dot in the middle there, if you can see that. You see that star? Okay, that is Proxima Centauri, the closest star to our own sun, right? So it's about magnitude 11. And yeah, I just turned the scope there and said, take a photo, and it found it. And likewise for Pluto, if you want to go finding Pluto, it's very easy to pick up on this setup. The running chicken, again, I think this was done partly in suburbia and partly from dark skies. And this is another one I did in suburbia. And this was actually shot over 3 nights with a full moon in the sky. Okay, so in Bortle 8, full moon, and with the right filters, and this is an Extreme filter, you can actually get some very impressive images. So I think that's all I really had to say.
Great.
But the idea for us is to try to exploit this technology to support public outreach events. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where we are. And also, I enjoy doing a bit of photography, and yeah, so that's all I really had to say, Doug.
It's great, Kim. Boy, you're a great addition to the team. And like I've told you before several times, Kim, we're just so happy to have somebody in the southern sky for these marathons too. We lamented that we didn't have that before. So it's also great to have not only you, but it sounds like your whole club you bring with you if you're president of an entire club. So that's awesome. You're doing great work with all those scopes and bringing everybody together. 600 people, that's amazing. All right, we're going to push on to other folks, but Kim.
Quick question,
yes.
Just a real basic one for Kim. Really impressed with the use of the projector. Any specific recommendations what to look for? If you could post in the chat or anything. I mean, that's something I'm really interested in.
In terms of the projector, we're still working our way through the technology to identify ones that work best for us. We had a couple of candidates, and they've been ruled out because of the intent. There's not enough lumens, and the resolution may not be there. One of the challenges we found with the event we did at Plant 4 was having a cable on the ground just to power the scope. Was not a good thing. The management got very nervous about legal liability. And so we're looking for wireless projectors as well to minimise the number of cables lying around. So look, we're still researching that, and we'll find something that works, and I'll make sure I share that.
That's great.
Okay, thanks very much.
Good question, Michael. Okay, let's ask Lance. Are you on board, Lance, from Idaho? I think you go by Ambart 3561 on cloudy nights. Did you have to take off? I saw you had logged on earlier. Are you there, Lance? Bummer. Now, I don't think Marco from Switzerland or Mark from Silver Spring, Maryland, I haven't seen either one of them. Are you guys here, Marco or Mark? Okay, but we did see Mark Lovick from Chatham. And Mark, you had a question about undersampling. I don't know if you want to ask that or share anything else that you're working with. Go ahead, Mark.
Mine's a little different, and I may want to show some images, but I'm very early on, and I'd say I've got a very modest imaging rig compared to anybody else. I'm using, I've got an AT72 refractor. I also have a Meade 8-inch Schmidt Cassegrain, but I haven't used that yet for imaging. I just bought a fairly cheap 0.5 reducer on it to see how it would work, but I'm not sure if I've got tracking going. My system for the imaging rig is less than about $1,000, maybe $1,100. I mean, I've got some old equipment, one newer refractor, and then a 178 mm sensor. But I'm surprised at what I can do in terms of galaxies. One night I saw 22 objects, and I was seeing down to magnitude 17, which is visually, you just can't do that. And that was in Bortle 5 skies. But I'm a scientist by trade traditionally, and so sometimes there's the fiddling around. So I've got an old CG5 that was a write-off that I kind of put some belt drives on. And so cobbling it up and getting it to work has been interesting. But then I'm trying to see what I can do with modest equipment. Now, one of the things I'm doing is I'm oversampling. I'm probably getting 3 or 4 pixels for a star on the 178, and it's monochrome. And so I'm not getting then the ×2 or anything. But now if I wanted to go to a color camera all of a sudden, and if you're undersampling and you're not doing some sort of guiding, dithering kind of mess, now you've got yourself color balance problems. If you've got a star just hitting a pixel or so, and you've got big pixels, what in heck do other people do? That was my core question. So I rattled about me, but then kind of led into this question is, I kind of like oversampling. Hit the Nyquist where it truly is, and then make sure it's like at least ×2, and then I suspect coloring would work. But a lot of the systems here aren't doing that. So how do you do color?
Anybody want to take a crack at that? We have some folks on that are much more experienced than I am, so I wonder if anyone wants to take a crack at that.
I apologize. I missed the first part of the question. What's the question?
Okay, the real core of the question is, if you're undersampling and then you've got the actual color pattern running between it, which makes the resolution even less, how do you get color integrity in stars and some of the features when you have high contrast and you're undersampling? You know, you can sit there and if you've got a guide scope, which you can do in EAA, but I'm not doing it, you can sit there and you can kind of dither around, kind of move around and play around, or you can assume your mount is cruddy enough that you're going to kind of wander out and blur out your star image, and hopefully it's bigger than the color matrix pattern, but then you're losing resolution. So how do you deal with color? Astrophotography does it different from EAA. So how do you handle it when you're undersampled on a color sensor?
I always run oversampled. I always say 1 or under, so I don't really run into the issue. So I don't know that I can answer that one.
Okay, well, that seems like that would be the better one, but like the astrophotography people always want to cheat and undersample so you get these glorious monster-wide views. If I'm looking at small things, I'd rather get the integrity and see what I can see and then get the right color balance. And I haven't fought it yet because I'm still doing mono.
I've sure studied this topic a bit, and you being a scientist, I'm really sobered about trying. What kind of science do you do, by the way, Mark?
I was originally a spectroscopist.
Oh my goodness.
I was a scientific software kind of guy, and I was an atomic spectroscopist. So
oh my goodness.
I'm used to some of these things, and I'm used to digital imaging. Haven't done that as much lately. I'm doing, you know, architecture of big software systems is where I am now. But where I'm wanting to get is, like right now, is there boatloads of like Python tools for imaging. You know, that's where astronomers are, and there's a lot of imaging libraries for it. And so what I'd like to see eventually is to be able to look at like background variances like on sensors and be able to plot that quickly, or to be able to do deltas to kind of see information on screens. And most of that's semi-custom, and that's where the fun is. I've got an image core set up in monochrome to play with, and I'd really like to kind of play to be the scientist and the one that's doing the imaging, because I care about the images of what I'm looking at. And I could show some images, but they're not that terribly impressive. They're, like I said, 72 millimeters with the 178. I am getting pretty good tracking with my mount. I can go to like 45, 60 seconds without any tracking issues. I'm keeping it down to 10 or so. And then with the stacking, doing pretty well. And then I do anything to try and help sometimes, like the resolution. Since I'm oversampling, I would say anybody who's doing that, we really, really ought to be using like the smooth. Like if you're in SharpCap, there's a Gaussian smooth. You don't have to sit there and just double pixels. Why not take the full resolution with all the data, but then just filter appropriately with the right Gaussian profile, or there's some better ones in SharpCap, and you can actually do that on the fly. When I'm looking at things like globulars, that really tends to help the image. Just do a little bit of filtering, then a little bit of sharpening, and you can then get a nice mixture, seeing the outer and the inner stars.
Wow,
So
tell you what.
This is just me kind of yakking, but like I said, my hardware right now is immature, and it's very much cobbled, but I'm trying to learn enough to intelligently get a little better.
Yeah, I think you're going to have some threads on cloudy nights that we're all going to want to study, Mark. So keep up the good work. I think most of us are sobered about, speaking to somebody who does atomic spectroscopy for a living. So,
yeah, Mark, it's Mike here again. I'm here in Spain. My recommendation is log on to the SharpCap forum and ask Robin directly, the guy who developed SharpCap, Robin. He's the administrator there, and he always answers everything from the most basic beginner to advanced spectrum. Scientists like yourself.
Yes.
Can't pronounce it. It's too early.
He seems like a sharp guy.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree that he's a very sharp guy. In fact, his signal to noise kinds of discussions in terms of like cooling, not cooling, and then like sky background is just spot on.
Yeah.
He's a sharp guy that knows his stuff.
Yeah,
Really
it's a combination.
So yeah, I may want to ask him about that.
Right, I'm a scientist as well, but a biologist. But what I appreciate, he combines the theoretical with the empirical.
Yes.
Which is always nice.
And if you don't do both, in other words, empirical without theory is, just kind of a scientist plumber. But theory without experience is also the same kind of goofy thing. You have to be grounded.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if he can do both of those, and it seems like he knows it. I mean, he doesn't just talk it; he knows it.
Exactly.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, thanks for asking those questions. Looks like we just have maybe 5 more guys to go, and I wonder if Philip isn't here, so that would leave 4. Philip, are you on from San Bernardino? I don't think Philip made it, so that leaves 4. Michael, why don't you go ahead? And I know that I don't know much about your scope and stuff. Go ahead and tell us what you're running there in Spain.
Oh, okay. What I'm going to try and do, you caught me by surprise here. Let me, I was imaging last night. So,
yeah.
I was going to go outside and talk it over there. I thought I'd already.
Yeah.
Can you get me next? I'll.
Yeah. There you go. Take it away, Michael. What city are you in Spain, by the way?
I'm in Valencia.
Valencia.
Just outside Valencia in a small village. We're officially Portal 8, but it depends what direction you look in. If Portal 5, sorry.
Oh.
If you look towards Valencia, I think downtown Valencia, you can see the glow. But if I look west in the opposite direction, it's nice and dark, and it's probably 5 to 4 even.
Got it.
There. So,
go ahead and share your screen if you like, Michael.
Yeah,
while you're sharing your screen, I've got to ask you, do you follow soccer and do you like Valencia as a team?
Yeah, it's the Euros today. So
yes,
England play. It's a big revenge match of England against Croatia.
And I guess Christian Eriksen is stable and doing okay.
I was tracking that last night during the game, not quite sure how he's doing, but he was alive. He was awake and conscious.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay, let's see. Start video, and okay. And how do I change the there? Okay. Let's see. So, I go into this.
We're on a field trip with you, Michael. Look at that. Some kind of a cover over his scope to keep the bugs off or something. Look at that. We don't have your sound, Michael. I think you're muted.
Yeah, he's been muted the whole time on that machine we're seeing the video on. So
I'm
I'm wondering if
sorry.
he had.
Okay,
Go
so
ahead.
I will start again. Sorry about that. So I was imaging last night. So this is what I bought about a year ago. Just it was, you know, ostensibly then obviously just sold as a visual scope. It's a 14-inch Skywatcher, you know, SynScan Go 2 Dobson, and so when I first got it, you know, I was happy looking at the moon and tried Mars and things like that, and have since added more and more things to it, and it's now working quite nicely. So I got a this ASCII 294 on it. I've got one of the first things I did was put this electric focuser on it, and then I've since added the remote focusing. That's the Focus Stream device that drives the electric motor, and that's the cable going down to the USB hub to allow me to control it from inside. And the big jump forward actually was a result of one of these Cloudy Nights meetings arranged by Doug a month ago, when people were talking about remote cabling, because I'd just been sitting out here with my laptop in the winter freezing my behind off. So I noticed a few of the guys, I think Mike, I think were you them, was using a USB Ethernet extender. So that's the option I've gone through, is to use a USB Ethernet extender. And there's normally, if it's connected, a Cat6 cable coming out of here. And the Cat6 cable runs straight into the garage and then up into my office over there. But this little device has been working out great. I can connect, this is the mount direct to it. I can connect the focuser device direct to it. And of course, the camera. I can also add in a guide camera or a second camera, but I don't use a guide. This is just it's a Dobson, and it's been working out real nice. So the latest edition, because this is a big 14-inch Dobson, so it's got a pretty narrow field of view. So I wanted to try and extend that. So I bought this cheap TS 0.5 reducer that's in the light chain there, and yeah, kind of had no idea where I should place it, so I went for the simplest option. And I was expecting, because I'd read that on a Newtonian, that there's sometimes a problem with getting sufficient in focus. So I sort of preempted that by using just a really short adapter there, because originally I had like a 5 centimeter adapter tube on there, and I knew the distance between the focuser and the camera was about 8 centimeters. So I thought, well, if I shorten this tube, maybe I'll get around that, and that worked actually. So had no problem within focus. And then the second problem I was aware of would be a lot of vignetting. And wow, yeah. I'm going to go back in and switch over to my, other camera. How do I? Give me 1 second, and I'll show you. I have to mute this phone here. How do I stop sharing this screen? If I just leave the meeting.
That definitely
Doug, what are
stopped
you
the share.
snacking on? Doug, what are you chewing on? Anything good?
Now, these are Triscuits. Triscuits.
Hey, I was gonna say earlier, Mark, I was gonna ask you, have you considered using dithering in SharpCap?
Pardon?
Hi, Doug. Can I share my screen or?
By all means, go for it.
Okay. So I'm on the other computer, the one called Mike's screen at the moment. So let's see. Okay. So let's see. So there's three, yeah, great. So there's three images lined up here. And the one on the right, that shows you the amount of vignetting I was getting. That's in one of the flats I used last night. I took a whole library of flats to figure out which one would work the best. And I ended up using this one as my flat number 3, I think. And on the right, on the left, you can see, this is an image.
What was the camera?
This is the ASCII 294 using a 0.5 reducer on a Newtonian 14-inch. And, you know, I was anticipating I'll get a hell of a lot of vignetting, and that was the case. But as you can see, the picture on the right is with the, this is with the reducer. And you can see there's a little bit of vignetting here, but it's a lot better than when I started with. So I still want to play around with the flats a little bit, but I'm pretty pleased with this image here, because on the left is the image without the reducer of M82. And the field is about 30% bigger with this reducer, allowing me to capture both M81 and M82 for the first time. I'd never been able to do that, you know, using this Dobson. So pretty pleased with that, really. So that's where I am. It's been a real journey from just a visual scope to adding on all the bells and whistles, now to a completely remote sort of outside setup, viewing it in the office, and now increasing the field of view. So a lot of fun.
And Michael, does that scope track?
Oh yeah, of course. It's a SynScan.
I see.
The tracking comes with it. Okay.
I see.
So
I just normally can't get my arms around that big of a Dobson that also tracks, but I know
I can. These are all done. Those 2 images there were 4-second exposures, but I can do 15 seconds, and it's acceptable. 30 seconds, you're going to see, you know, trailing. I did have a run at using PhD on a using a 224 camera that I got, and a guide scope, but it didn't really like it. I might have another run at that. I'm someone who likes to really mess around with these things, but it works fine at the moment. So I use the tracking, and then obviously on top of that, plate solving to find things, and with SharpCap and everything, and it works great.
And your Spanish, is it almost like native? I mean, you've lived there a number of years.
It's not native, but I can communicate with most belligerent officials in the town here sufficiently.
Okay.
Let's put it like that.
All right. Well,
that's the level you need, really. You know.
We'll come back to you, Michael, if we have more time. I guess we'll go ahead and move on. But well done on getting this done in just a month. You've made great progress. So. How about Scott in Niagara Falls? Did you have a question, or tell us about what you're running there, Scott in Niagara?
I basically started off real easy with an ETX 90 ASI 224, waiting on an SC8 to come in if they ever get any more stock. Finally got my focus figured out. I had to 3D print the nose piece.
Wow. Okay. Well done, Scott. And do you have dark skies, or I bet it's pretty bright there, right?
Probably about a 5 most of the time, 5, 6, depends on the evening, what's going on.
It's awesome. Well, I can't remember if you had any other questions, but we'll come back to you, Scott, if you do. How about David Elder from Surprise? It was really a surprise to see you on tonight, David. Do you have any other questions or want to tell us about your equipment? Maybe David had to step away. I notice, John, how do I say your last name? Kotko, John, and that's your
Koutko, yeah.
Koutko, and that's also your handle on Cloudy Nights, Koutko. It looks like you're in Redwood City. You had a question about equipment recommendations. Can you give us a little more specific question?
Well, I've got a Zoom LZ8. I just got started in this, I don't know, back in the fall. Actually, coincidentally, right before the grand conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, which I knew nothing about when I bought the telescope, but I think it was the wildfires were dying down last summer. And I walked out one night to put out the garbage, and I looked up and it's like, wow, there were a lot of stars. It was a very clear night. So I thought, you know what, maybe I should buy a telescope. It's been a long time. Used to go to the observatory down at Foothill College once every several years as a kid. So I ended up, borrowed a neighbor's cheap little old Meade motorized scope just to see how it worked. That thing would not stop vibrating and wiggling, so I couldn't really do anything with it. So I bought the Zoom LZ8, and then I got an ASI 224 MC camera and a handful of lenses. I got a Nagler, 7mm 82, and then a couple of APM 100 degree eyepieces, mostly just to look at the planets. And so then I thought, well, maybe start to get into the DSOs, because I couldn't see anything where I am. I'm like Bortle 6, I guess, roughly. Don't see a whole lot of stars in the sky. And then I found out about EAA and your group here. There's a local astronomy club here that I joined. They've got a bunch of Unistellars? Is that what they're called? That they're using, and those look great as far as convenience and simplicity. I don't know that they're going to give you great photos just because the mechanics of the mount and the tracking and stuff like that. So I would like to get something. I'm kind of just been poking around, learning about the equipment. I'm thinking along the lines of a RASA 8 and maybe a CEM 40 mount. I know the EQR6 Pro is kind of the go-to, but it's also a massive piece of metal. So that's where I wasn't sure. I know a lot of the stuff's in back order anyway, so I probably have some time before buying it. So I was also looking around to see one of my interests is to be able to pick this up and throw it in the car. We go to Reno a lot to visit the relatives. So, I'm just thinking 80 pounds of equipment might be a little bit much to throw in the car. So if I can get the lighter mount, or if I can get a starter set, something, I was thinking like a smart, what is it? The iOptron Smart EQ Pro series. Is that the one, smaller one? And maybe with a smaller aperture, I don't know what kind of scope with it. But so I just wanted to find out if there's any offhand recommendations as to if I just want to get started and learn how to play with the equipment and still get halfway decent photos with halfway decent tracking. Was it worth trying to get anything less than one of these better mounts?
I would tell you that the EQ6R is a barrier to bring around. Just getting back from Teton and Yellowstone took up a significant amount of car space and was very difficult to break down and set up. So I would say that's not your portable go-to.
What's your budget, John? How much is that a limiting factor?
For the good equipment, I'm not too concerned. I figure I'm going to end up spending $5,000 or so.
Good.
If it's a RASA 8, you get especially if I get a CEM with one of those tri-pair mounts that look like really, really sturdy for the house. So at home, I'm just going to tote it out from the garage 20 to 30 feet into the courtyard and point it at the sky and see what I can see. I might do local star parties where I'll throw that equipment in the car. But like, again, if we do a trip to go visit my mother-in-law in Reno, I'm probably not going to put 100 pounds of equipment in the back of the car.
Yeah, EQ6 is good for the backyard.
Yeah. So I was thinking for the small, well, I guess you guys call them grab and go units, if I could get into one of these $500-600 mounts with a scope. Camera price, I'll leave that out. but I guess the question was, is any of this these lower end mounts any good, or am I just going to be disappointed until I get a good mount?
You almost sound like you want an Altaz mount, something like the Celestron Evolution kind of mount is almost what it looks like, because field rotation won't be a problem for short subs. And it would be a lot simpler because an equatorial mount, the little ones don't have much of a weight limit.
Yeah.
The AVX or like my CG5, you're starting to put, 15, 20 pounds on, and you're starting to push it. You have to balance really well. And like I've got a belt drive on mine to help it, and it still is getting on the edge where like a smaller optical assembly, if you keep it small, then that's not so bad. But if you get Rasa, you're going to be talking about some weight.
Mike Jerry has some great experience with the Altaz, and he gets tremendous EAA work done. So I think the Altaz may be the way to go. Portability.
What
20-second subs.
Okay.
John, have you ever looked at a Stellina?
Well, I've seen them. Yeah, I've never seen one in person. The guys at the club here have the Unistellars, and they said the Stellina's out, and the Stellina's got a little brother coming out at some point, theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, it's, what is it, $4,000? I forget what the price is, but all of us have spent $4,000 anyway. If by the time you buy a Rasa type scope and a decent mount to carry it, I mean, put a camera on it and you're already up to $4,000 anyway. I mean, I would at least consider it, because then you can take that to whatever place you said. I forget where you said you're going, Tetons or whatever, but
no, Reno. It's a 4-hour, 5-hour drive.
Yeah, you can put that Stellina in a backpack and head to wherever you want to go.
The Unistellars are $3,000. It's just they're so small. I mean, they're all in one units. So you can't really do anything with them. You can't throw an eyepiece on them. Granted, the Rasa 8, you can't throw an eyepiece on it, but you can drop an SCT on top of the mount, and now you've got a fairly good optical mount, right? Or optical setup. No, I guess for the small grab and go, I was looking for something lower end, but if so far I'm not hearing.
What does the Rasa 8 weigh compared to?
17 pounds, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see. So yeah, so maybe like an F4 6-inch, like TPO and the Evolution, kind of like what Jerry has. So right there, there's the picture. The thing is, if you're going to do the wedge is pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to do
the wedge is heavy, and it's a pain in the neck to set up, which is why I leave mine set up all the time on the pier. The wedge and the pier stay out there.
You have to buy the concrete blocks too and carry the blocks around.
Yeah. This would be a little bit of a pain, especially since they're glued together. But doing something like the Evo and a 6-inch Newt, that's pretty simple. It does take a little more space perhaps than a refractor, but they're just longer and skinnier. So this is about as simple as you're going to get for an Altaz. And out of this, you can easily get 15 or 20-second exposures. And since you're headed to dark skies anyway, that's typically all you need.
And what I was going to say is that, so this is, because of that wedge, if you wanted an EQ mount, like an AVX class, that's probably with the 6-inch, and especially if you can get a mount where you can use that Star Sense. I know it's like an extra feature that it just depends what software you're using, but what I use the Star Sense all the time because I don't have time for the alignment, or sometimes I'm going out there, I just wanted to align while I'm setting up, and when it works great. And especially when you miss a target, you can have it do a learn in that area, and then it gets you on target. Especially when you're traveling, that's going to save you some time. So maybe an AVX or equivalent mount that can connect to a Star Sense with the 6-inch F4, you'll be doing pretty well.
Now, John, you ask 10 amateurs what kind of scope they'd recommend. You get 21 answers. So
no, that's fine. With this particular, the F4, do you have to have a coma corrector on there?
I had to have not for a 1/2 inch or smaller sensor. When I had the 178, I did not need it. So for 178 to 385, et cetera, if you're going to go to something bigger like the 533, or I moved up to the 183, the 1-inch sensor, then I found it was worth it. Otherwise, I was definitely getting some coma out in the corners out here, which even with a simple corrector like the Beta MPCC3, that was enough to clean it all up. So it doesn't have to be a real expensive, complicated one for the 6-inch f4 to clean it up. But yeah, I found for a 1-inch sensor or better, it's a good idea.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right,
you're
John.
looking
Well,
at under 1,500 for a setup like this, probably.
cool. There you go, John. So we'll keep on dialoguing with you about this. I'm just trying to ask, besides myself, is there anybody else that we haven't touched base with in the call? I think that means we've kind of given 5 minutes to everybody. Is there anyone we missed? Okay, well, I'll do and I'm going to start my timer and be very, religious about it so that I don't abuse. I tell you, one of the journeys I've been on is I am constantly thinking that if I can, I think I'm going to turn this background deal off because it seems like that's messing up the ability to show you things from this camera, isn't it? So are you able to see, like, here's my spool of Ethernet cable. It's about 200 feet of Ethernet cable. And I was trying to figure out, how do I get this 200 feet of Ethernet cable to work? So the first thing I did is I started looking at this Icron USB Raven 3104. And you have a local unit, and then you also have a remote unit, and the remote unit functions kind of like your USB hub. It has USB inputs. You can plug in a USB 3 or a USB 2. The problem was how to convert this and how to afford it. So I finally found those Icrons on an eBay deal. I was able to get them for $400, and compared to what I was trying before, it really worked well. Then I found out that, well, for $400, it didn't include the power supply. So I had to actually do some science fair work and make the power supply, by buying the raw parts off Amazon. But I've kind of enjoyed that. It's kind of getting me back into my 8th grade, 9th grade, erector set kind of self. So I've enjoyed that part. And then now what I'm working on is the next step, and that is I'm working on using this this project box here, and I'm cooking it up so that all my power is organized here.
Yeah, Doug, sorry to interrupt, but your focus thing is messing up.
Your blur is on.
I know it's true, but if I do this, I'll be wasting precious time on my stopwatch. Let's
go to
see.
virtual backgrounds. And
virtual background and say none. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. So this project here that I'm working on, I've got this, what do you call these? Meanwell. If you go on Amazon, Meanwell makes a bunch of these things where you convert the 110 to 12 volt. Then I'm converting everything to 12 volt and running that up to the scope. And I'm going to have a virtual box with this thing setting on a Los Mandy mount like this. And this Los Mandy mount deal is going to ride on top of the RASA, and then this is going to ride in a project box, just a smaller project box on type of scope, and this will be my USB hub. So the bottom line is, now I did test this last night, and it does allow me to run the USB 3 primary camera, which is the ZWO ASI 2600 MC Pro. It lets me run the USB 3 camera. It lets me run the USB 3 guide camera, the USB 2 focuser, and the USB 2 mount lets me run, yeah, I guess those 4 signals all through the same Ethernet cable now, up to 300 feet away. And I tested it last night on 200 feet of Ethernet, and it's going to work. So what this will do is let me operate inside our press center and atrium and have an observatory out in the back. And I was talking to our facility manager. He's kind of, okayed it in principle. So it's kind of a fun project I've been working on the side. And the rest of the gear is all supposed to come in tomorrow. If I can get it all wired up, boy, it would be fun to be observing with that even as early as perhaps tomorrow night. So that's what I'm kind of shooting for, is 24 hours from now to be able to operate 200 feet away from the scope as a precursor to the day, months from now, whatever, maybe a year from now, whatever, that I finally can have a little observatory. So that's what I've been working on. I think that uses up all my time. So my time is done.
You're gonna run all the USB ports from the scope site to your whatever observatory.
Yeah, what this means is that all of the USB signals can combine into one Ethernet. You heard Michael was talking about it on a shorter run. This lets you run all 4 USB signals into one Ethernet cable and lets you have a lot fewer cables to run back to the control room.
Yeah, I see they have 4 port units. This will do 4 USB 3s.
It'll be,
looks
it
like pretty
lets you do
heavy-duty
4
equipment.
of anything. You can do USB 3, 2, or 1. It's vanilla. It lets you plug and play whatever USB you want.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same setup that I've got. I've got 4 USB ports and I can use all of them and then just go out through a cat cable up to 30 meters, which, so far works fine.
Right.
So
exactly,
both are good solutions. It's the same thing, basically. It's an Ethernet extender. And there's various different models on Amazon, but depending whether you're in the US or Europe, what's available, but they're priced anywhere from $35 upwards, and I got lucky with a $74 model that works quite nicely for me. So
good.
Yeah.
I just really wanted to make sure it was in the specs, in the specifications, that it was certified at USB 3, the full bandwidth of USB 3, and I couldn't find anything less than $1,000 that was certified for both USB 3 and USB 2. And I was really glad to find these on eBay at 400, and then found out the power supplies didn't come. I probably just got $30 in the gear for the power supply. So it wasn't that much. It was just the trouble of making them. So anyway, that's all my part. I think that wraps up everybody. We've got about 15 minutes left. Does anybody have any loose ends that we haven't covered that you want to talk about now? Next. Mike's still just tooling away here. Which target is that there, Mike, right now?
This is M13.
M13, good.
Yeah, just started on that. Yeah, I'm just kind of flopping around the sky, keeping us in some visual stuff.
Super.
I got Draco triplet if you're interested.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
that's
for
awesome, Jeff, please, because we haven't seen you got your, what did you do? You had to shoot flats or what?
Yeah, my OAG completely rotated around during transport. So let's see.
Well, this is our big finale.
So this has been
then.
running for like 20. Is my screen up?
Not yet.
Let's double check.
While he's doing that, I'll just talk about for our next gathering. I was going to propose.
Well, now can you see me now?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Yep.
Is it popping up?
Yep.
Yep. ASIR. Yeah, we can see your ASIR screen.
Yeah, so this is Draco triplet. And I've just been letting this run while everybody talks. So this is 27 minutes. I've let the guider run. It's dithering. It's been doing actually pretty well for the conditions.
It handles the guiding too, right inside of ASI.
Yeah, everything is, again, if I click on the guiding screen, it'll show you the guide star that it has selected. You can also override it and select one that you want. But that's pretty good for what I've seen.
I mean, PhD2 just got multi-star, 6 months ago. So ASI Air is staying up with.
They're not too far behind.
Yeah, that's right. That's a beautiful image.
So I've never used ASI Air. It looks pretty good. So basically it has a guide program built in, unlike SharpCap. Is that correct?
It does.
One of the big
You just tell it what your
That's
guide
fair enough.
cam is and what its focal length is. And then there's this screen will show you there's a bunch of settings that are a little finicky depending on whether you're using an on-axis guider or off-axis guider. But once you get it sort of dialed in, it pretty much does it for you.
You know, I might give that a go with the Dobson because I tried PhD and
This is
got through
PhD
calibration.
light, basically.
Yeah, no, it might be a good thing to start with, at least troubleshooting.
At least I don't have to learn another program. That's the point.
Did I understand that they actually bought, like they did an API toolkit kind of thing with PhD2 in ASI Air, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I understood.
Jeff, what are you running this off of?
This is on an iPad Mini 2 from like
Okay.
2012, maybe.
Because
I
I
just
bought
tried tonight to load it through a laptop through a Android emulator, and it was having some trouble talking to my Wi-Fi router at the scope. So I just went with the iPad Mini.
the new Mac Mini M1 chips, I guess, will run iOS apps now.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
all right, I'll stop sharing. That's my thing.
Beautiful. So glad you got up and running, and all during our hour and a half there. So well done getting all that arranged. Anybody else have any loose ends? I was thinking about for next month. Yes.
I got a technical question.
Sure.
About how you guys do flats. I mean, I think I've got it figured out now. I made a lot of progress in the last few days, actually. But you know, I've read in some books and and online that people say you have to use the same gain as your lights. And then, but if you look at the SharpCap instructions, he specifically says, Robin specifically says two things. One is just use a very low gain, even zero gain, and because you want it as smooth as possible, as least grainy as possible. His comment is for that. And the other thing he says there is when you're doing your flats to not, especially with the ASCII 294 camera, to not select the bias frames. Okay, so I just wondered, thrown out for discussion, what you guys are doing for gain. And
I can speak on the 294 because that's what I'm using.
Yeah, thanks. Please.
And I read all those things too, and until recently had avoided gain from 120 to 190 based on Sanjeev and Klausout's research. And so just recently started doing zero gain per all the recommendations, and it's worked pretty good. Yeah. I do not do bias frames. I do flat darks at the same setting as my flats, and it's worked great. So hats off to Klausout and Sanjeev for doing that thread and making all those observations.
Can you post that thread? They did sort of reference that that thing about doing it at the unity gain at 120 being dangerous, around 120 plus or minus of that.
And I never had those problems, but
okay.
certain ones of those sensors, the 294 sensors, certain people have trouble in that range of 120 to 190. Right. So I initially was doing all my stuff at a gain of 200. And of course the stars were blowing out a bit. And so just recently I went to unity gain on the lights and 0 gain on the flats, and it's worked really well. Hope that helps.
No, it's confirmation of what I've read. Thanks very much.
What are we using? Hey Jeff, what are you using for light source?
I got a Illumaglow light panel. There's a company that makes EL panels called Illumaglow, and they make a 10-inch flat Illumaglow with a rechargeable battery pack and a acrylic circle that comes with it. It came as a unit. I think it was $150, which was less than some of the others, but more than the Amazon tracing pad. The Amazon tracing pad was unevenly lit from top and bottom, and so that didn't work out very well for me for $20. But the Illumaglow has worked great. It fits on my 8-inch SCT perfectly. It's adjustable. I put it on full brightness with a couple sheets of muslin, and everything corrects pretty well, as you can see.
Cool. Michael, I put in the chat panel there, you probably saw that, isn't it darks that we're supposed to shoot with the same exact exposure gain? I don't think flats are quite as discerning, but we do have to shoot our darks with the same sets of exposure.
That's clear. That wasn't a problem.
Okay.
It's just that both in some discussions, particularly even on the SharpCap forum and in that book, the Deep Sky Photography book, I think he talks about using the same gain as lights. And but you know, the SharpCap forum, if you really go through it, they really iron it out and basically say exactly the same as Jeff just said there. And the big problem around doing flats around the unity gain point for the 294 with that sensor is a real problem.
Okay. For next month, I was trying to find the right time. I think with our third rotation, we're supposed to do Europe and then West Coast and then East Coast and then Australia. That's kind of the way we had landed for now anyway to operate. So I think it's East Coast's turn next time in our third meeting. I was trying to find a Friday night close to the new moon. Why don't we do July 2nd? And let's do it on Friday night and do it 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern, July 2nd, Friday night. That's like within 7 days of new moon. That'll give people the holiday weekend. So if they have a little bit of extra time during the holiday weekend, maybe that sounds attractive. And let's try that date and see how it works. Anybody object to that idea?
It'll be an all-nighter for me, but that's okay.
Yeah, in other words, it's always going to be bad timing. Like right now, it's 2 a.m. for me. I mean, it's always going to be bad timing for somebody every month. That's the problem with being scattered across so many time zones. But one month out of every 4, it should be primo prime time observing and easy, easy evening for us. 1 month out of 4. Okay, let's try that then. I'll go ahead and put that in the upcoming announcements, July 2nd, 9 p.m. Eastern, that we'll try for next time. We've got about 5 minutes. Anybody want to make any last points or questions or anything else you want to share in our final 5 minutes?
I did post a question about cooled versus uncooled cameras for EAA only.
Okay.
What's that opinion out there?
Boy, I've tried using the 2600 uncooled, and I do get those hot pixels. So I can see why, people are cooling their cameras. Even for EAA, it was noticeable, and it's noticeable to the audience. They would say, "What's that blue spot right there?" So I think it is worth cooling if you can pull it off, right? Anybody else have a thought?
Yeah, I've played around with that a bit with the 294. I've got the, the Pro, so it does cooling. And the problem I was initially running into was actually condensation when I took it down to -15. And then I watched Robin's SharpCap video on this, and he points out that the noise reduction based on cooling is really a very low percentage of the noise generated, with the read noise and everything like that. So what I've been doing to avoid the condensation issue is not actually cooling it, but having it using the temperature controller at a fixed temperature of 15 degrees, which is just above the dew point for me. Okay, so that keeps it nice and dry, and then I've got a reproducible temperature, and I don't see, at least with the 294 MC, I really don't see any problems with hot pixels, and it's good enough for EAA.
Is that 15 Celsius, Michael?
15 Celsius, yes. Yeah. And yeah, we use meters and Celsius in the old world.
I'm about the same. I've been doing mine at about -8 rather than going all the way down like you see in the books and everything. And of course, the 2600 has the dew, what's that called? Like an anti-dew thing on the built into the camera. So maybe that helps on the.
Yeah, I have that. I bought that extra. I might try it again now that, who knows what I was doing when I first got it. But even with the dew heater, as it's called,
yeah,
I was having problems. It was a ventilation issue, I think. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I wanted to mention also I run the ASA 294 uncooled, and I don't have any problems with hot pixels or so on. Anyway, it would be quite interesting to have a cooled camera to stay at the same temperature for the darks, for example. But I did a library of darks, so I have some with 15 degrees, some with 20 degrees, some with 10 degrees. And I select the appropriate temperature dark, which is close to the actual temperature. So I don't have a need for a cooled camera.
Great. Now SharpCap automatically picks the closest dark, right? That's an amazing feature in SharpCap, that it chooses the closest dark for you. That's just remarkable. Mike, we're going to close off then with your last image here. Talk to us about it.
This is the Eagle Nebula. You can see right in here. So it's just came above 20 degrees above my southern horizon, so I could just get it just now. But this is kind of one of the first treats of the upcoming summer goodies that we get to see.
Mike, can you give us
so funny? I just slewed there, Mike.
How many stars roughly? Do you have some way to count how many stars there are there for us?
Sure. Give me a minute.
So Jeff, you just slewed there as well, huh?
I just went there.
1, 2, 3.
Are my friend.
4.
Well, on that
5.
note, I think we're at our
How long is that, Mike?
You guys are wonderful.
Can you zoom into that? Is because that's the Pillars of Creation thing or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in to see what you can see there?
Well, I've only got 2 minutes of data, so we're not going to see a whole lot yet. But yes, eventually this will clean up. If I can go another 10 or 15, about 10 minutes or so, it'll clean up to be more than that. Right now, it's very grainy because I don't have many subs in yet.
That's amazing. What's your focal length one more time, Mike?
610 millimeters.
610. Okay. You're doing a great job. You're getting every single millimeter is good out of that, man.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you all for being here tonight. This has been great. I think we'll get into a rhythm and we'll start kind of learning what is my 7 minutes or what is my 5 minutes or whatever. We'll start kind of feeling like what's it like to prepare a 5-minute, 7-minute TED Talk rather than a 20-minute TED Talk, because there aren't 20-minute TED Talks, as you know. So that'll help us as we get into that 5 or 7 minute rhythm. And then I also think we'll begin to kind of read and remember what somebody else talked about and build on that. I think we'll, in these monthly gatherings, we'll see a gradual climb of our group knowledge base, our shared knowledge trust. So that's kind of exciting. We'll get to know each other in relationships, so we'll kind of begin to realize who's good at what and which guy should I ask this question and which guy should I ask that question. So I think overall it's a fun experience, and I hope you guys will be back next month and spread the word, and we'll continue to build our team. So ultimately next March or whenever we do the Messier Marathon, we will have the best team in the world for that, beyond a shadow of a doubt. So,
Hey, Mike, I can share mine at 1440.
there you go. Go for it.
Okay.
Jeff,
And I'd like to say thank you, Doug, for putting this together. And this is great that we're doing this, and it's all because you tirelessly put it together and cheerlead it and all the thank you for doing this. This has been great.
Well,
Really
it's a lot of fun.
It's helped me a lot, Doug.
It's a lot of fun, and thank you for you guys make it work. So we'll put the video up so that we'll have the.
Can you guys see my pillar?
Yes. Now, how many frames is that?
That's 1 minute.
1 minute.
Goodness me.
Or no, maybe it's 4.
Okay.
Wow.
And as you can see the loading bar is still thinking, so it might be a frame or 2 behind.
Yeah. Yeah, 4 frames.
What's
It's amazing.
What scope do you have?
8, right?
This is a Celestron 8-inch Edge HD.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
What are you running for a reducer on that?
0.7. So it's at 1440, I think.
Right. Okay.
The best part,
it's
Jeff,
really
is
funny how you slewed to it just before I did.
the best part, Jeff, is you supply the Cricket sound effects too. That's probably on some kind of a push button, and you just
that's right.
give us the crickets every once in a while just to. All right, guys, we're going to call it a
Good night, everybody.
Thanks so much. Appreciate all of you. Good friends, good brothers.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good
night. Bye.
Night, everyone.